Although Ukraine has agreed to a 30-day ceasefire, Moscow is dragging its feet. U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff had talks with Vladimir Putin on Thursday. However, we still don't know whether Russia will sign off on the plan. In the meantime, the war rages on with daily attacks in both directions. Pressure is on all along the front lines, including the Kursk salient. Joining me now to discuss the latest political developments and the threats along the front lines is Senior Fellow at the Transatlantic Defense and Security Program at the Center for European Policy Analysis, Nico Lange. Hello, Nico, and thank you very much for joining us on World News tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, now 30-day ceasefire. Will Russia agree will it agree without any major preconditions? Because we've heard a long list of issues that it already has.
And many people these days do not have experience with Soviet diplomacy anymore, but the Soviet diplomacy approach is what we are seeing. So you say yes, but what you mean is no, and then you say yes, but there's a little nuance, and the little nuance is Ukraine has to give up, and then I may be ready for ceasefire and peace. So I do not expect Putin to agree with anything. And the question for me is, now that Trump's plan is not really working, what will he do next?
Well, right. I mean, the pressure has been on Ukraine here now for several weeks, especially since this really loud meeting in the Oval Office. So is it time now for the focus to switch squarely on Russia? And do you think it's possible that the Trump administration can now take a tougher approach?
I think, first of all, you have to give Ukraine and the Ukrainian leadership credit for sticking together and for working this out, and also for jumping over their shadow. Because, I mean, it's really tough. If you have been treated like this, then writing a letter and apologizing, you have to really put the interest of your country first. And I think Ukraine managed to repair the relationship and to just be friendly and say yes, so that the spotlight would move from Ukraine to Russia. And I think that is where the pressure should be, to pressure Putin and Russia to agree to a ceasefire and to move towards peace. I'm just afraid that the only move that Donald Trump has so far, which is threatening bringing the oil prices down, might be not enough, and it might also not be fast enough to really get Putin on the table.
Right. Well, they did put the sanctions on the European countries to not do those deals that they had previously done with Russia. So I guess that's encouraging from one side. But now I'd like to switch gears a little bit and talk about the current situation on the front line. There is a lot of pressure in several directions, namely in Pokrovsk, Chasiv Yar, Kupiansk, and then, of course, we have the situation in Kursk, which we can get to in a minute. But looking at the current situation on the front line, and if we can imagine a 30-day ceasefire, what do you think both sides would do with their troops and their militaries in the event of such a ceasefire?
The situation at the front lines has been mixed over the last weeks, because Ukraine was able to have successful counterattacks near Pokrovsk, in Toretsk, a city where the Russians already thought they are through, but Ukraine is pushing them back now, also in Chasiv Yar and near Kupiansk. At the same time, Russia was successfully pushing the Ukrainians in Sucha in Kursk Oblast, and Ukraine now, I think, is about to leave Kursk Oblast completely. By the way, the weird story about thousands of Ukrainian troops being encircled is not true. It's an invention. But Ukraine has been under pressure there. It will be very difficult to really have a ceasefire because there is no line of contact. If you travel there, if you really see it, it's like a zone of 25, 30 kilometers with drones flying around. It's a death zone. So it will be really difficult to enforce a ceasefire on the ground. That's why the initial suggestion that was also initiated by France and the UK was to say, let's have a ceasefire in the air, on sea, because on land it will be really difficult. But as I said already, I don't think Russia will agree anyway.
Right. Even Vladimir Putin raised that issue with Steve Witkoff. Well, and also, you know, this situation which they claim that Donald Trump actually said that he requested of Vladimir Putin to spare the lives of the Ukrainians who are surrounded there. What do you think the true extent of Kursk is? Do you think it's time that the Ukrainians will withdraw?
Well, there is already very good reporting about this. I also talked to Ukrainians who have been involved. There's also satellite images that you can watch. So some of the retreat from the Kursk salient was chaotic on the Ukrainian side, but some of it was well managed. So the Ukrainians are retreating. There are pockets where there are a couple of soldiers who are retreating by foot, but there is no thousands of Ukrainians being encircled, which is not really possible to encircle somebody on the territory anyway. This is more like stories from the Second World War or from the past. It seems that there have been Russian war bloggers talking about this a couple of days ago, and that has been spread in the news, as it often is the case, unverified. But maybe also Putin raised this with Witkoff, and it's like a theater being played, you know, telling the story that there are Ukrainians encircled and giving the gift of letting them pass, and Trump is playing along. It's a distraction from the ceasefire proposal, and maybe Putin is giving this distraction, talking about something else. Again, classic move of Soviet diplomacy.
One thing I'm really encouraged by, or was encouraged by, in Jeddah at the beginning of the week, Secretary of State Marco Rubio said that if Russia doesn't agree to the ceasefire, then we will know who is the impediment to peace. Does this firmly, in your opinion, put the ball into Russia's court, and now Russia is the one that has to act?
Yeah, but let's be honest. I mean, you and I, everybody knows that the impediment to peace has been Russia since 2014 when they attacked Ukraine. And
I know, but for Marco Rubio to say this, is this something that's not significant coming out of everything that we've heard?
Yeah, but it just shows that I think wrongly the US administration put itself in a position saying, oh, there are two parties in war and we have to be a mediator. But it has never been two parties in war. It has been Russia attacking Ukraine. So, but you are right. I think if the focus now is on pressuring Russia, that is where it belongs. Because Russia can end this war any day. Putin has just to stop his aggression. The question is, what is the consequence now? Will there be more sanctions? Will there be sanctions against the Russian ships selling the oil? Will there be military pressure? Will there be more US military deliveries to Ukraine to show the Russians really you have to give in now? For now, we heard from Waltz that there will be shuttle diplomacy. But what is there to shuttle? I think the Ukrainians, they can surrender without Trump and his administration. They can do this anytime if they want to. So more pressure on the Ukrainian side will not bring us closer to a ceasefire.
Right. Well, hopefully it's the other way around. Hopefully it's more pressure on the Russian side. Rubio also said that a certain foreign minister from Europe told him that the war should continue until the end of the year to degrade the Russian economy further and put Ukraine in a position of strength. Now, do you agree or disagree with the statement of this anonymous European foreign minister?
Who could that be?
Geez, I wonder.
Well, I think it's not so easy to speculate on when the economic fallout will really hit the Russian Federation. It's clear for Putin the war is a money issue mainly. He doesn't care for human lives, but it's not an existential money issue for now. He has revenues. So unless I think Russia is really pushed by lower oil prices and by less possibilities to sell their raw materials to third parties, then it will be very difficult to really exercise pressure. What we see is, though, that Russia is militarily beatable. I mean, they have to retreat now near Pokrovsk and near Toretsk, and what they achieved after 3 years of war is not very impressive. They did not reach their military goals, but I think then military pressure needs to be part of it. If the war continues, we need to equip Ukraine with the necessary weapons and ammunitions to put pressure on Russia, and I think this will help to really get Putin to the table.
The resumption of intelligence sharing is also something mentioned at the beginning of the week, as well as the weapons deliveries, despite us seeing in the media that some of these platforms that were set up in the Rzeszów airport have been dismantled. Do you think the U.S. is going to continue these weapons deliveries, or at least until we get some movement on the Russian side?
Yeah, I think some damage has been done. Everybody is asking themselves the question, can the United States of America be trusted? Is this now a temporary solution, or will they next week turn around and say, oh, we thought about this again, we will stop the help, we will stop the intelligence assistance? I think we have to work on alternatives. And the truth is also, the Europeans should not only watch Trump TV, the Europeans should get deliveries to Ukraine, finance the Ukrainian defense industry, which can do much more, and also get much stronger with their military posture themselves, because we cannot rely that the United States will now continue. There are some alternatives to intelligence sharing. There are also European satellite pictures that can be part of it. But to be honest, some weapons, some ammunition, some intelligence instruments, we don't have them as Europeans, and we have to close those capability gaps as soon as we can to be strategically more able to help ourselves and Ukraine.
Well, let's hope that comes sooner than later. Nico Lange, Senior Fellow at the Transatlantic Defense and Security Program at the Center for European Policy Analysis. Thank you very much for joining us and sharing your insight. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
And that concludes this edition of World News Tonight. Do stay tuned, because Face to Face with Michał Broniatowski and Adam Yasser is coming up next. Goodbye.